Okay, friends, so we're going to read the biography about Ezra Jack Keats. So I hope that you've got your paper ready, ready to take some notes along with me as we think about our story elements. In the somebody section, we're going to be thinking about that character, their traits, and one way we can do that is by setting up a character trait web like we saw that friend do for Mary Casket. So let's go ahead and jot down Ezra Jack Keats in the center of this section, and I'll circle it, ready to be on the lookout for thinking about what actions, thoughts, and talk show about Ezra Jack Keats. I'm going to be on the lookout for what he wants, what he's motivated by, some trouble that might be getting in the way, and a resolution. Let's dive in. Benjamin Katz and Augusta Podgany were born in Warsaw, Poland. However, they did not meet until they had both emigrated to the United States. Continuing the Polish custom, their wedding was arranged by a matchmaker. After the marriage, the two settled in the Jewish quarter of Brooklyn, New York, in a two-family house on number 438 Vermont Street. Their third child, Jacob Ezra Katz, was born on March 11th, 1916. So note then, friends, that his original name was Jacob Ezra Katz. I'm going to jot that down in that somebody section. Keats became interested in art at a very early age. When I think about what he's motivated by then, I'm going to go ahead and jot this idea of art. His mother encouraged his talent, but his father seemed to only criticize his ability. Working at Pete's coffee shop in Greenwich Village, Benjamin Katz knew how hard earning a living could be. He felt that his son could never really be successful as an artist. However, his father did purchase tubes of paint for Keats under the pretense of having traded bowls of soup to starving artists. If you don't think artists starve, well, let me tell you. One man came in the other day and swapped me a tube of paint for a bowl of soup. So we got this problem, right? His father believes that he might not be able to make a living and be able to survive as an artist. Keats did win the approval of his father when he was paid 25 cents for painting an advertisement for a local store at the age of 8. Finally, Benjamin thought his son might be able to earn a living wage with his art as a sign painter. And so we start this section, right? As he begins to solve this problem of not being able to survive as an artist. And I expect as we continue to read on that we'll learn the different ways that he overcame this struggle. First one, 25 cents earned. I'll go ahead and continue. When Benjamin Katz died on January 1935, Keats, on the day before his high school graduation, had to identify his father's body. For the first time, he learned that his father had been proud of his work. In Caldecott Medal speech in 1963, Keats shared the experience. I found myself staring deep into his secret feelings. There in his wallet were worn and tattered newspaper clippings of the notices of the awards I had won, my silent admirer and supplier, who had been torn between his dread of my leading a life of hardship and his real pride in my work. Although Keats won 3 scholarships to art school, he was unable to attend. He worked to support his family by day and took art classes at night when he could. Friends, this is making me think about what kind of person Ezra Jack Keats is. I would say he's definitely a hard worker based on this idea that we just read. That he worked to support his family by day and took art classes at night when he could. In 1937, he secured a job with the Works Progress Administrator, WPA, working as a mural painter. After 3 years' time, Keats moved on to work as a comic book illustrator. Then in 1942, Keats began working on the staff of Fawcett Publication, illustrating backgrounds for the Captain Marvel comic strip. On April 13, 1943, Keats entered the service of the United States Air Corps, taking advantage of his skills as an artist. The Army trained him to design camouflage patterns. Keats was given an honorary discharge in 1945, and he returned to New York. Keats suffered a period of health problems and melancholy after he returned home. 2 years after World War II, Jacob Ezra Katz legally changed his name to Ezra Jack Keats. This was most certainly a reaction to the anti-Semitic prejudices of the time. In 1954, Jubilant for Sure by Elizabeth Hubbard Lansing was published. The book set in the mountains of Kentucky was the first book Keats illustrated for children. Keats, in an unpublished autobiography, said, "I didn't even ask to get into children's books." In the 11 years that followed, Keats illustrated 54 books. So he's becoming a book illustrator. When we think about what he wants, right? We also had that he did camouflage patterns for the Army Corps, for the Air Corps. My Dog is Lost, co-authored by Pat Chair, was published in 1960. It was Keats' first attempt at authoring a children's book. The main character is a Puerto Rican boy named Juanito, who lost his dog in New York and meets children from different sections of New York, such as Chinatown and Little Italy. Keats was innovative in his use of minority children as central characters. In the 2 years that followed, Keats worked on a book featuring a little boy named Peter. Peter was inspired by photos Keats had clipped from Life magazine in 1940. Then began an experience that turned my life around, working on a book with a black kid as a hero. None of the manuscripts I'd been illustrating featured any black kids, except for token blacks in the background. My book would have him there simply because he should have been there all along. Years before, I had cut from a magazine a strip of photos of a little black boy. I often put them on my studio walls before I'd begun to illustrate children's books. I just loved looking at him. This was the child who would be the hero of my book. So friends, I'm thinking about another important story element. We have another motivation, right? We have another motivation, and that he wants, as looking here, his exact words. This was the child who would be the hero of my book. So you can pause right here, friends, and jot that down. The book featured Peter, the Snowy Day, receiving Cape Cod Medal for the most distinguished picture book for children in 1963. Peter appears in 6 more books, growing from a small boy in The Snowy Day to adolescent in Pet Show. Keats authored and illustrated more than 85 books for children. In 1980, he was awarded the University of Southern Mississippi Medallion for outstanding contributions in the field of children's literature. So I'm going to jot that down. right? And so again, that last motivation and thing that he did to achieve that gave me another idea that he's not only a hard worker, right? But as our Jack Keats was also an influencer. He was an upstander. He was caring. As I think again about what does that person's actions, thoughts, talk show about that person? And so, friends, I hope that you've seen how thinking about story elements, thinking about the character, what the character wants, the character traits, what's getting in the way of the character and what they did in reaction, helps you as you read biographies.